I'm so excited about today's episode. I have a guest today who is going to just give you information that you're not going to get anywhere else. You're not going to get this in a university setting. You're not going to get this on YouTube. You're not going to get this on social media. It is so cutting edge. And the guest is going to share information that's going to help our children with autism who are experiencing toxic and persistent stress, and as a result, a lot of trauma. She's really going to get to the core. Just to tell you a little bit about our guest today, she is a parent of a preschooler with autism who is thriving. She is also a registered nurse with a degree from University of Michigan. She has done a lot of work in trauma care in the ER, the ICU unit, and currently in wound healing. She also does lots and lots and lots of research. The information she's going to share with you today is very groundbreaking. I'm really excited about it because it's not information that has high risk and some reward. It's information that has very little risk. What she's going to offer us today are things anyone can do that reaps great rewards for our kiddos with autism. This is a very unique, novel approach and experience that gets great results. I'm so excited that she is going to give a voice to the voiceless today. Her name is Afton Clark, and she is starting a movement known as Alchemizing Autism that she's going to tell us about today. This is going to be great if you are a parent of a child with autism, if you are a professional working with a child with autism, if you know someone who is working with a child with autism. This is all great, great, great information. That said, I do have a disclaimer. When it comes to medical advice, you always want to see your medical practitioner. But the ideas that are presented today, take notes. Open a Google Doc, take notes, talk to your medical practitioner about these ideas and how they can help your child. Before we begin, I'm just going to give a little bit of a setting. Currently, we have children with autism, and we talk about them experiencing toxic stress. And that is because we know that over 90% of children with autism, for one, they have sensory challenges, and the senses keep us safe. So what we know is they have sensory challenges, so they feel unsafe. Now, what does that do to a child where they're chronically feeling unsafe? They're going to be in that fight, flight, fright amygdala brain, and we know more about this with other populations, such as populations who are in poverty, or populations who are in abusive and neglectful homes, or populations who are in violent situations. These children experience long-term post-traumatic stress disorder. These children we know have differences in their organs, with their organs malfunctioning as a result of being in this state. These children we know even have differences in their mitochondria. And these are chronic, persistent differences that are lifelong. These are people that have difficulty with family relationships, work relationships, their health, because of this persistent toxic stress. So it's so important that we have Afton Clark here today, who has done so much research, who has done so much with her own child who is flourishing, to share with us these new ideas that you're not going to get anywhere else, and how we can support children with autism from within so that this stress, it becomes tolerable stress in which they are not victims of it. Instead, they are going to be those that are stronger because they are ones that overcome these challenges. So I'm so excited for this episode in which we look at how we can take these challenges and how we can develop children who are not victims, but are stronger as a result of the support that Afton is going to share with us today. I'm going to start off, Afton, and ask you about your movement that you're starting right now. It's called Alchemizing Autism. Now, this is something new. I've never heard of alchemizing autism. What is alchemizing autism? mean?
Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite terms. I love talking about it. It's to bring things back to balance. It's to cause change, to cause transformation, to modify, to create balance. My whole mission is to get people to look at autism differently, to not look at it as this illness. It's a beautiful thing. And these children are so incredibly intuitive. They are amazing at listening to their bodies. We have forgotten that as we get older and as we kind of get conditioned as adults to kind of use more of our left brain than our right brain and rationalize symptoms and all of this. Children with autism are so powerful and in listening to their own bodies and knowing what they need. It's just that expression isn't always there. So I want to kind of break that matrix and make people kind of shift their thinking into more of a positive thing and versus, oh, we need to fix this behavior and fix that behavior. It's, wow, how powerful is that behavior? How amazing is it that child has that intuition to know that they need to go take off their shoes and go ground outside? It's amazing. I want to bring that positive light into it, especially those who are struggling. If you're initially getting the diagnosis or if you're struggling with child behaviors, I'm here for you. I hear you and I see you.
That is wonderful. And you talked about when you received your diagnosis that your preschool age son has autism. And what was that like? How was that experience like receiving the diagnosis?
Initially, I was devastated. I had this kind of back and forth feeling. I was grateful that I got the diagnosis because as a nurse, I was worried that there was something medically else going on that maybe I wasn't catching, maybe I was kind of blind to. But I was relieved that we got the diagnosis, that there was finally something that I could hone in on. But I felt that mom guilt or that parent guilt that I had done something to cause this for my child. And looking back, that was such a selfish way of thinking because I have this beautiful intuitive soul here that was sent to me that now looking back has taught me so much about life and about being healthy. I was not healthy prior to getting this diagnosis mentally, physically. I wasn't eating healthy. I wasn't doing the methods that I'm doing in terms of recharging my body. And then mentally, I hadn't healed from any traumas. This process that I hone in on is about not just the child, but the parent too, and really making that a cohesive, intuitive relationship.
That is what I love about your approach. It's so holistic. You're not treating the mind, you're not treating the heart, you're not treating the body, you're treating all of the above. We need to support the mind, we need to support the body, we need to support the child's heart. And what is really interesting to me is you bring the experience of childhood trauma for the parent. And when we do an evaluation in the schools, or when we do an evaluation in the private care setting, this is all of the things wrong with your child. This is the top of the iceberg. A, we have behavioral issues. B, we have sensory issues. C, we have communication issues. D, we have play skill issues. The idea is look at all of the things wrong with your child. And a lot of parents have a protector shame response where they were told you don't belong, where they were told there's something wrong with you. And there's a protector that comes out. We need to fix this. We need to make him just like everyone else. And we need to fix the sensory. We need to fix that communication. We need to fix the play skills. We need to fix the behavior. We need to fix all of these things so that you will belong and that I won't feel shame because you're going to be good enough. We're going to make you,
Mhm.
if that's coming out for the parent, the trauma from childhood, they convey that to the child. There's something wrong with you. You don't belong. You don't belong here. You're not good enough. And you talk about that and what is that going to do to the child? Let's unpack that because we know from the research if that child just has one stable adult that supports that child and that loves that child unconditionally and
Mhm.
doesn't see all the things wrong with you, but all the things right with you, that child's going to be okay. They just need one person, and that's your message. You say, this is what's most important. Let's get to that, what you're talking about right here, about how you've changed.
I realized early on that my son was so intuitive. He
Mhm.
just could feel and sense everything, kind of like those spidey senses. Now I use that same theory with my son. His intuition is a superpower and it is amazing. And I want to emulate that superpower too. I want to have those spidey senses that he has. Just to give you an idea of how intuitive children with autism are and how they pick up on your energy and what you're giving off in the household, it's very similar to when you walk into a room where there had been maybe a heated discussion between two people or whatever, or somebody's just not in a good mood and you feel it when you walk in. The room is just heavy or you just cut through the air. It's very similar to that. If you roll your eyes, you don't even have to be facing that child and your back can be turned and you roll your eyes, they know it. They are that in tune in bringing the energy in. And so whenever we get triggered by something, typically that's because we don't have this like in peaceful response to something. Typically that's something within us that is we're harboring or we have this bias against because of an experience we've had, right? Our experiences throughout life have caused us to be a little bit jaded sometimes against certain things. So, whenever we've healed from our past, or say it's our parents raised us this way, so I want to do it different, or you get off the phone with someone, it just, when you can heal from all of that, your child feels it. Your child feels what you've been through. They are that in tune. They can feel when you're sad, even if you don't show it. It calls you out. And that's what I love about it is that it calls you out to say, yeah, you might have done counseling for a while, but you never really did the work. You never did the work behind the scenes. And you realize, wow, I shouldn't be this impatient. I shouldn't be this tired. I shouldn't be this quick to judge or snap or anything like that. And I realized when I started shifting my thinking to the positive, I was so much happier. I felt healthier. I was resting better. The relationship with my son just felt closer. I could anticipate more. I felt my intuition rising and my ability to perceive and anticipate next moves. And that was powerful. I refer to it as superpower, and it really is. It's powerful when your intuition and you feel that kind of rising up, you get what you want more and more. It's incredible. My goal is for all autistic children to keep that intuition and not let it go so much left brain as they get older. No, keep that intuition, but we're going to build on those skills where we might struggle a little bit or we're still learning, but definitely keeping that intuition and just building on those strengths and looking at it as a strength. This isn't a bad thing. I was devastated, but now I am so grateful for it, for what I've learned. It's changed my life in terms of positivity. Who knows where I would be if I didn't have this diagnosis and I wouldn't have faced the things I needed to face in my life for the best of my child. It's been a beautiful thing.
That is just brilliant. I think you have this child that doesn't feel safe because their sensory systems are saying, You're not safe here." And then they look to that parent, and the parent's reaction isn't safe either. That
Mhm.
confirms this is not a safe world that I'm in here.
Mhm.
And just how important it is that that parent reaction is that they are safe and secure. That to help this child who is feeling like they're being chased by the tiger right now. You brought up this other point and about how they bring you into the world because everyone has addiction. I don't want to get off a rabbit hole, but whether it's addiction to electronics or their phone or alcohol or drugs, we have an addicted society that is numbing out. And,
Mhm.
and this what we need these children that are saying, no, I need you here with me. I
Yes.
need you. People need each other. This is where the magic is happening right here. And you can't get away with numbing out with me. I need you. It's a beautiful message. And you mentioned that before, that you said that the children with autism is exactly what our society needs right now. We have a broken world, and they're going to give us that message that we need one another. We're talking about the heart, and you're saying, okay, but this is first and foremost, most important is that intuition, and not only the child's intuition, but that the parent it has intuition as well, and that the parent is grounded and present. And that's when the magic is going to happen. When everyone's trying to not be present. Now, on top of that, you also look at the physiology of the body and the neurology of the mind and food. Your child eats very healthy. He drinks coconut water, which
Yes.
is huge. And I look at that because I've been a fitness instructor for years, and I know that no amount of exercise and parking your car at the end of the parking structure and all the other great things you do is going to work if you're eating a happy meal every day. It just cancels out everything you're going to do. You can do everything under the sun, right? But if you are eating poison every day, it's going to undo all the good. How do you feel about food and autism? A lot of the children I work with, when it's snack time, we have a marshmallow pie, which is followed by Oreo cookies, which is followed by goldfish crackers, which is followed by a big juice. It's sugar,
Yeah.
sugar, sugar, and more sugar. So, what do we do about that?
Yeah, the ultra processed foods, and it's just getting worse and worse. Every ingredient you read is bioengineered this, and our food doesn't feel real anymore. It's very well documented and very well studied that the gut and the brain are connected. They're the most connected organs. Same thing whenever you eat something unhealthy. You don't feel great, your brain is foggy, the next day you don't feel so good. When we incorporate whole foods into our diet, that is alchemizing our body. That's bringing our body to a natural state. It's bringing our body into a holistic state, giving it the nutrients that it needs. Granted, whenever we get to the foods to the grocery store, sometimes we've lost a lot of those minerals and those nutrients that we're needing. It's so important that when we look at the diet, we're eating things that are healthy for our gut, that are gut clearing, that are keeping the bacteria stabilized, that are keeping our bowels moving and just keeping everything flowing. We want this process just to be flowing. We want it to just feel like this is what our body's meant to be. And our body is meant to get things from the earth. Our body, we've lost the growing our own food touch. You don't really see that anymore. This year we planted our own garden. I felt like this was just things were getting out of hand in terms of the bioengineered foods and the pesticides and all of that. So we decided to grow a lot of our own food this year. And it was an amazing experience. My son not only learn skills in terms of food, but it made him excited about food. It made him try new foods that he never would have tried before. But incorporating his help in that, because kids just want to help and they just want to be involved and they just want to be with you and feel that one-on-one connectedness because they know whenever we're half in and half out. Whenever you can incorporate healthy foods and teaching them about that, add their intuition to it. My son can tell the difference between an egg that came from a farm and an egg that came from the grocery store in the next room. He can smell it and he
Mm,
knows. I'll hear him say ew when it's not a farm egg. He knows. That's how intuitive they are. I have seen my son when he has eaten processed foods that maybe he was given, or sometimes he does have those safe foods. It's not a perfect process. He does have some safe foods that maybe wouldn't like, but it's safe. And if that makes him safe in that moment and doesn't make him want to flee, then pick my battles. Here we go. But I do notice that he gets uncomfortable in his own body when he does have those foods, and it takes him time to process that out, maybe a little bit more time than other kids because their ability to break that stuff down isn't really there. They are so grounded to this earth and they're so, I call it high frequency. They operate at such a high frequency that they really need the holistic toolkit in their world. And when
mhm.
you can give them that, it's a beautiful thing. And you can see the opposite of that when you give them ultra processed foods. See how hard it is on their body and their mind, and they're frustrated. Their behaviors, communication, they get frustrated. They act out. They throw fits when you're like, "What is going on? Where's my child?" Well, what did they eat? You probably be able to nail down the source from there.
Yeah, you see that perfect storm in which you already don't feel safe because your sensory system's a mess. And then on top of that, you're weak because you're sick.
Yeah.
Because of the food you're ingesting. You talked about before sleep and how the food impacts sleep.
Yeah, sleep is huge. It's reparative, it's restorative. I put the red light on my son every night, and that helps a lot with his sleep. He loves it, he craves it. I used to keep it in the living room, and I had to move it into his room because he would keep wanting to run out to the living room and lay under it. When I moved it into his room, he knows that that's his time, and he knows to jump in bed and lay under his red light. And it's just so cozy for him because he knows what it's doing. He may not be able to put it into words what it's doing, but he feels it, and his body knows it, and he knows at the end of the night that that's what he needs and that's what he wants because it's recharging those mitochondria cells, and it's giving him back that balance that he needs. And And whenever we go off the rails a little bit with our diet or we're not detoxing very well, you notice it in your sleep. Your sleep is broken up, or you're waking up at times that you wouldn't, or you wake up and you're just uncomfortable. I can see it with my son and his feet, particularly kids with
Mm.
autism, very sensitive in their feet. And his feet are very restless constantly. Like he doesn't want me to touch his feet, but he wants me to touch his feet. You see that uncomfortableness in their skin. It's heartbreaking to look back on, but it's empowering now to know that I can break that down and help others break that down as well.
I love how you're not about treating the symptoms. If there's a sensory issue with the feet, you're not just put weighted socks on or do something like that and we'll take care of it that way. You're saying, okay, why? Why
Mhm.
is this happening? It's because his system's inflamed. It's full of sugar. The mitochondria is inflamed. The brain's inflamed. He's not sleeping. We got to get to the source. It's just so brilliant. And you mentioned the infrared light. I've never heard autism and infrared light. I know how powerful the infrared light is for detoxing in a myriad of conditions. Now, can you explain autism? Why autism and infrared light? Why
So
is that a powerful mix?
we go through things daily where our DNA is just damaged, whether it's, the air from, chemical trails and things like that, which is a different rabbit hole. But every day we're encountering things that are constantly damaging our DNA, whether it's even something down to stress. They're so sensitive to stressors and they feel these big feelings. And when they love, they love. And when they're mad, they're mad. Things that I love about red light. And I learned about red light for neuro stimulation from Dr. Kyle Daigle, and he has a practice down in Alabama. He does amazing work. I highly recommend looking at his Instagram. He helps people with TBIs, children with autism. He does everything down to brain waves and eye modulation. It's absolutely incredible. What I look at reducing inflammation. A lot of athletes are using red light now. It's getting a little more accepted in the Western medicine. Our bodies are batteries, and we forget that those need to be recharged. And the best way to do that is through the red light. It penetrates the mitochondria, it recharges that cell. The mitochondria is the powerhouse, right? It's super powerful, reduces any inflammation that we've had that day. You can do targeted, whether it's if they're complaining about their back or their leg or their belly, anything like that. I use that as a Tylenol substitute. I don't use Tylenol. I don't use Motrin. I use the red light. It's known to help with the pain receptors. It's known to help stimulate neurogenesis. It's known to improve composition of the microbiome and the neuroplasticity of the brain. I have one, my son has one. I've noticed a big difference since I've started using it in terms of my energy levels the next day and that I feel more restored the next day. I love to talk to people about it because the big gain that you get with the little risk. I
Yes.
mean, absolutely. Some that are very affordable. You don't have to spend $400 or $500 on these. There are some that are very affordable on Amazon.
I think that you keep coming back to this idea. It's just like our children with autism, they're kind of like race cars, and they need top shelf food, top shelf maintenance because of the way they're operating. And what you don't put 87 gasoline, the cheapest thing out there, into a race car. What you're telling us is we need to support these children because they're operating at such an intense level. They're thinking big, they're feeling big. So we
Yeah.
need to give them big support.
Yes. It's a beautiful way to put it.
We could do everything right. But if we don't have that relationship piece that you mentioned, that's so important. And that has to come from, as you mentioned, first the parent. The
Mhm.
parent has to be, and I'm not going to say self-actualized, but the parent has to be in a good place to provide that support to the child. And a lot of parents have emailed me on this. Fruits and vegetables, they are expensive. It's much cheaper to buy a packet of hot dogs and a packet of buns for a couple of bucks and feed a family than it is to buy bell peppers. What is your advice for them that money is an issue? They can't buy organic. What should they do? Buying fruits and vegetables is a big deal too, because that's very expensive.
Farmers markets are great because it's coming from the source. You can ask questions. In a grocery store, you can't really ask questions. The most you can do is really try to look and see if you can find the farm that it came from and maybe do a little bit of Googling, but you're kind of sitting there in the store Googling, right? But if you can get to a farmer's market, there is a site called localharvest.org where you can look up the nearest farms near you. Organic doesn't always mean better. And there's a lot of evidence coming out on that. If you can't afford Whole Foods, that's fine. You can still give your kid the nutrients that they need by just giving them the foods without the barcodes, is properly washing the pesticides off and doing your best. You give them just even a little bit of that nutrient, their bodies will know what to do with it. And we just have to trust that we are doing the right thing by giving them those whole foods and restoring their connection back to the earth and the foods that come from the earth. It's all this beautiful cycle. And when we start restoring our relationship back with the earth, even and the soil and the foods that come from that, you feel the difference in your body and your mind and the way you think and the way that you feel about things in certain situations. You don't feel that just uncomfortableness that you can just see people wanting to shake out of. It's pretty powerful. When you take a step back and look at it, you can really see it. It just, you have to acknowledge that there could be that difference and there could be an issue between the ultra processed foods versus the farmers market food. And you can even kind of negotiate too, especially if it's toward the end of the day. Like, hey, I'll give you $2 for the rest of your corn.
Mhm.
Yeah, less for them to load. It's a great option.
You talked about your child. He helps prepare the food. He helps make the smoothies, cut things up, put them in. And we know that when you're in this flight, fight, freeze zone space, that things that are unfamiliar are scary. The taste buds are right next to the brainstem. So it's like, oh, poison, be careful. And I like how I'm thinking about you with your child at the farmer's market, putting things in the bag, picking things up, just how much hands-on experience. This is not scary. This
Hmm.
vegetables are what we play with, are constantly touching from the farm, from our garden. This is not foreign. This is not something to be scared of. Organic bell peppers are way too expensive for me. I'm not paying $5 for one pepper. I buy
Right.
spray that's supposed to get rid of pesticide. I don't know if it does or not, but it makes me feel better. You have a trick that you use that's more natural than this
Mhm.
expensive spray with a million ingredients I can't pronounce. What
Yeah.
is the trick that you use to get rid of pesticides?
I always encourage people to do their due diligence with everything that I say and see what works for you. I get a bowl, say grapes, for example, throw some grapes in the water. We always use filtered water. I always use alkaline water. I prefer alkaline, usually around like a 9 or 10. And just putting the body in an alkaline state is just known to be super beneficial. Throw some filtered water in there, throw about a tablespoon or two, just depending on how much is in there in terms of grapes or whatever product is that I'm washing. And baking soda, a splash of vinegar, and I only keep it in there for maybe 1 to 2 minutes, and that's it. That's all it really needs. And then you will be amazed at what you see in the bowl, especially comparative to whatever you were using before. It's truly the most beneficial wash I've seen because we know that there are trillions of tons of pesticides being sprayed across probably 99% of farmlands, which is just super discouraging to think like, man, that's no matter what, it's on everything. And it's hard to take that in that that's okay nowadays, but all we can do is the best we can with what we've got. And there are tools out there, and I just want to help get that out there.
Wonderful. And how much baking soda do you add to a bowl of water? Um,
I usually use a tablespoon.
okay.
Um, 1 to 2, just depending on how much I have in there. If I use an extra large bowl, or but 1 tablespoon is plenty sufficient.
So far, we've talked about relationships and food. And now going back culturally, the Navajo tribe is in your history. Does that experience of your family background draw into how you approach autism as well?
Definitely, there was just a respect for where you came from, for Earth, for what has been provided for you. When you start like when we started planting our garden, just having that respect for the soil and the ability to grow our own food. It's all energy. Plants have energy as well. They feed off of us. Brody and I planted corn over the summer, and I always use this comparison to just show how beautiful his energy is. I planted one row and he planted another row, and his row just like skyrocketed and was like knee high by 4th of July, and mine was like barely getting there. I believe in my heart of hearts that the plants were picking up on his energy and having that respect for Mother Earth. And I'm a very metaphysical person, but when you have the respect for the energy around you and what we've lost in the years of everything that we've done. We used to garden ourselves. We used to grow our own foods. You never heard of ultra processed foods. You never heard of a lot of these issues that have come up, and it's all being traced back to food and how bioengineered that it is. And most of it's done in labs now. That just doesn't feel right in my heart of hearts and soul. And my son picks it up. That background has really helped me whenever I got the diagnosis. I really leaned into that
Mm.
because going back to what the root of us are, and we're holistic beings, we're meant to use the tools that are here for us.
It's interesting how it feels like your Navajo background impacts your scientific brain, your left and your right brain, and how you've mentioned before that the children with our autism are teaching us that we need to reconnect with the earth. We need to reconnect with each other. And that's where the solution lies. Like that will fix so many of our ills that we have in our society. We're spending a lot of time on food, but when if I go to a grocery store and I just look down at people's carts, I can tell you what the person looks like. I can tell
Mhm.
you that the person behind that cart is going to look very sick. They're going to be in very bad condition without looking at the person. So I'm glad that we're spending this much time on food. I feel so fortunate because I know your child and you have not done 40 hours a week of ABA. And not that there's anything wrong with that. There's research to support that method, that medical model. However, what you have done is you've done all the things to support your child from within. So
Mm.
you've done a very naturalistic approach, but you haven't done nothing. You've
Yeah.
done everything to support your child to better interact with this world, to empower them, to empower your child. People get so simplistic and they think, should I do ABA or should I do play therapy? We got to get deeper than that. We got to go
Yeah.
to the source of all of these problems if we're going to help these children. It's so wonderful having you here because you have the medical knowledge. You also have this experience with the intuitive knowledge, the social emotional knowledge that you bring to this. And you have a lot of experience with food and natural healing, naturopathic kind of methods. We're moving into supplements. Now, melatonin, most children with autism have problems with sleep. 99% of the time, the recommendation is to take melatonin. Now, of course, you listening at home, your medical professional is who you're going to follow. But what is the problem with just take melatonin? What are your thoughts on that?
Melatonin is one of those things that we had used it before, just very, very sparingly. But I always just got this feeling that I didn't like. I just didn't like using it. It didn't feel natural to me. It didn't feel, and then the next day, it's like I had to wait for my son to come back to me. It's like he was gone for a little bit and he would be kind of grumpy when he woke up. His body just told me, I don't like this. And I listened to that. And I have always used magnesium for my son. There, you can do it topically where you have a spray. You can use a magnesium spray on the feet. Works. He loves it with autism. So sensitive feet, again, it really helps calm those, especially when they get to working at night. He likes that deep pressure at night. It helps that. It helps soothe him to sleep. He loves those feet rubs. So I incorporate the spray and the foot rubs and all of that. Those are just all the ways to make him feel safe. But magnesium helps, and my husband and I both take it too at nighttime. It helps relax your muscles. It helps you just naturally relax. We are lacking magnesium in our foods. Like I said, by the time it gets to the store, a lot of those nutrients have been stripped out of there by different processes that they're using. And so it is so important that we replenish our body with those nutrients that are being stripped of our food we might think we're eating healthy and getting those, but we really need to make sure. And magnesium is one of those that is known all of us are deficient in, but especially in autism, and something that's so natural that our body needs that can help them just relax and calm down. And it by no means it doesn't knock him out, but it helps his body relax and doesn't help him feel so restless. So that I can really narrow it down that did he eat something maybe he shouldn't have today? If he responds to the magnesium, I know that we're doing okay. If he's not, I have to look back and see, well, what did he eat today? Go from there and make sure that we're doing our gut cleanses, and we do parasite cleanses every now and again. Then we do binders and the zeolite. Zeolite is just the number one thing, if I can say, to put in your cabinet if you're struggling with money or whatnot, because supplements can get quite expensive. Magnesium and zeolite are the two things I'd say get those in your cabinet, and you'll notice a world of difference.
And I love that. I love no, this is why people they must follow you on Alchemizing Autism on Instagram, and we're going to have all of the links, is because you are not talking about putting a band-aid over the problems. You're saying let's improve the child's physiology and let the child do what the body knows what to do. And I
Yes.
find it interesting because you just bring so much to the table, and I think it has to do with your unique experiences. You are a wound care specialist. Do you approach wound care in this manner where you're like, you can't just take a pill for that?
Absolutely, and same thing with the food. I walk in and if I see, soda and candy and find out they're diabetic and their med sheet is full and I look at it and I go, "Whoa." Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's that counterintuitive of I'm gonna go exercise, but then I'm gonna burn 300 calories, but I'm gonna eat 300 calories. I have very frank conversations with my patients about this that you have to give your body the tools. And there are patients that I have met that have had wounds for years and years, and it's shocking to see that. And really, you get down to the root of it, and a lot of it is, well, why are they eating that way?
Mhm.
Well, my mom always made me finish my dinner plate, and it translated into I always had to finish my food because I couldn't leave the table until I finished my food. Let's talk about that. Let's work on that. I don't like healthy food. I don't like drinking water. Okay, well, what do you like? Do you like coconut water? Trying to find things that people like and really teaching them that you can do this and empowering them is something I don't want my son to lose because as you get older, they start getting hit with these things in the world, and then those traumas keep hitting and compounding on the traumas that you've already had from childhood. So, when you can unpack that
Mhm.
and really, again, go for the root cause of what happened here. What is the cause of your hypertension? What is the cause of this wound and why it's not healing? And a lot of times when you start changing their perception and then turn that perspective into something positive, because perspective and perception are very different. I want to make that clear. When they have this perception that I'm always going to have this wound and it's nothing's going to change, and then you start changing that positivity for them and empowering them to choose the right food and empowering them to look at things naturally, and that your body knows what to do. You just have to give it the tools. You give them those right tools and they get empowered. You see this light change in their eyes, and all of a sudden their wound is changing, and you see the epithelialization of the cells. And then pretty soon it's scabbing over, and they get so excited seeing that positivity can change everything, energy can change everything, and empowering them to make those right choices for their body. And then they start feeling it and then they start seeing it. And when you start incorporating all of that thought and mind and vocal, and you combine all of that, it can be the perfect storm or it can be the perfect solution.
Just thinking about the impact you have on an adult. Can you imagine the child's 3 and you put these practices that you suggested today into practice? The impact it has on that little 3-year-old body. I like that you talk about positivity because our children with autism, they're always doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. And we know that everyone being a human being, they need 80% of the interactions to be positive, or you break up. You don't have a relationship if it's below that 80% threshold. And if you ever just sit and observe a child with autism, you're probably going to find many times 80% of the interactions are negative. They're just
Yeah.
constantly being redirected. They're constantly being shunned and shamed or whatever. And what does that do?
That's
Mm-hmm.
trauma on trauma. I mean, makes you feel like you can't be yourself. And we go out and about, and sometimes the stores are overwhelming. But, hey, if we're at Target and he wants to womb space in a beanbag in the aisle, I'm right there with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't redirect him. I watch him listen to his body. And that's the key. I watch him listen to his body. And his body is telling him something. And as his parent, I need to make sure he's safe and I
Mm-hmm.
need to support that. His body's telling him he needs this. And it's my job as the parent to support that and to not interfere with that natural process that's needing to take place. Is he needing to ground? Is he at the playground wanting to take off his shoes? Okay, sure. Take off your shoes. That's fine. His body's telling him he needs to ground. He needs to feel safe and ground. And I can tell him, you're safe, all he wants, but his body needs to feel it. And by taking his shoes off, okay. Do all the other kids have their shoes off? No, I don't care. So letting go of what you others think, because honestly, 9 times out of 10, other people don't care. We care more about maybe what it looks like from the outside, humans and people, but when you let that go and you're just present in the moment with your child, you sit back and you think, I kind of needed a break too. It feels really good to have my shoes off too. I started taking my shoes off with my son. He is spot on right with all of it. It does feel great to put my feet in the grass or the sand, or if he needs a break from a crowd of people and needs to go out to the car. Yeah, that's this was perfect timing. I really needed that break too. Thank you so much for that. And I tell him that, and I appreciate him for that. And I tell him, I really appreciate you for showing me that. Or I really appreciate you for telling me that you needed that break. And I'm very appreciative that you listen to your body. And thank you for listening to your body. His language is developing. It's not perfect, but I know he can take in more than he can say by putting that positivity with that behavior of, I don't care that this is maybe not every single kid that does this. I am very appreciative that you are intuitive enough to listen to your body, and I'm here to keep you safe and to support you and to give you what you need. And I'm right here with you. And I have no shame in that. I have no shame in sitting in the middle of Target pulling out bean bags from the shelves and sorry you can't pass, your cart might not be able to get through here, but sorry about that. But my son and I are having this beautiful moment where we're connecting and I'm with him and supporting him the whole way through. And he's helping me. He's helped me be healthy. My body and reminded me that I need to ground and not let my left brain do all the talking of, oh, you're fine. You just been running around all day. No, I needed to ground and really take a second and mentally step back. And every day I wake up feeling great with energy and starting my day off with positivity and it of my kid is acting out or if they're throwing a tantrum. What is my kid's body telling him?
And it's so interesting because what you're saying might seem woo woo, but it's all based in research
Yep.
and research that's really well done, in which they said we just changed this one variable, and what she's saying does matter. And I wanted to get back to something that I noticed, and I think you understand this better than I do. We do have research that says nature matters, and that people spending more time with nature, you have better health outcomes all around, right? Mentally, physically, in your heart. Getting a little off subject, but when I was in Portugal, they have stones walkways, which are stone from 1100 that you're walking on. What is it about walking on real stone that's different from walking in the pavement that's mix of artificial everything under the sun? Why? Because you know so much. I would not ask this to anyone else. Why is
Yeah.
it so energizing when you're walking on real stone instead of walking on the fake pavement? Do you have an answer to
I
this?
will answer it to the best of what I know, and that is stone, and it's gonna be maybe woo-woo to some people, but stone has memory, just like water has memory. If you've
Mhm,
seen the studies where they have 2 separate things of water or, they expose it to something positive and something negative, and then they, freeze it, and the positive thing turns out beautiful, and the negative thing turns out broken and shattered.
uh-huh.
The amazing thing about that is stone is the same way. And it's funny you mentioned this because I was actually just reading something about this not that long ago. I was reading about the Stonehenge and stone has memory. It holds energy. I am very big into stone and crystal work with my son. That's probably woo to people, but I believe in the energy that they hold. And especially in places like Portugal, where there's so much history that you can only imagine what energy they're holding there. And I always encourage people to just, when you are grounding in that way of walking on stone, is just to take your time, really absorb what you're feeling, and you'll know what energy is being transferred to you. Is it a happy energy? Do you feel just more solitude and more at peace? Do you feel something heavy happened here? Everything is energy.
Mhm.
Nikola Tesla is a great example. Everything is energy. And so, whatever you're taking in, whether it's positive or negative, I just encourage people to just take your time and absorb it and take it in. And if it makes you listen to your body, and as adults who are left brain, we just listen to that left brain a lot. Really just try to let that go and realize how that makes your body feel when you walk on that stone, or how do you feel just standing there when you walk away, or does your body crave more of that, and really just trusting your body again like you did when you were young.
That is really interesting. I'm going to close on that note because I really see you as someone who's so cutting edge, so ahead of the curve. Everyone else is zigging and you're zagging, and I can be someone that says it really works. Her zagging, her naturalistic zagging, her lion's mane, her magnesium, her infrared light, her coconut water. Oh, coconut water. Gross. But all of this naturalistic stuff is highly effective, but I'm seeing in the real world. And I just really appreciate all that you bring to the table. I appreciate you so much and all that you bring to the table, and a voice for the voiceless, for the children with autism, and all of the lives you're going to change. How can our audience connect with you, learn from you, and all that you bring to the table?
Have an Instagram. It's called Alchemizing Autism, and then a YouTube channel also called Alchemizing Autism, where I'll be putting up a video pretty shortly. I'm going to start off with kind of a grounding series, and then I'll move into nutrition and all of that. I will also give you the email so you can put it in the chat below so that people can email me if there's anything you want me to talk about, or if there's anything you want to talk one on one with. I get it. I hear you. I see you. I feel you. I've been there whenever you've been handed a packet and just kind of you don't know where to turn, and you're told, here, do ABA and do all of this, where for me that wasn't the fit. It didn't feel right in my bones. Listening to yourself, your body, your intuition is just absolutely key, and I'm here to help anybody who needs it with that.
Well, we are so lucky for you. You are just such a gift, and it's so exciting to have you at the preschool level when neuroplasticity in the brain and the body is so great, and you can
Mhm.
really change lives. Thank you so much, Afton Clark. It has been such a
Thank you.
pleasure, and I hope to see you again. And I know your supplement, we didn't have time for that today, but I know it's in terms of natural supplements with very little risk, very high reward. That is a whole different, huge can of worms that you have, that of great, great information there. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.